We're at a point in civilization right now where we just can't go back to the way things were. Our younger generation will say anyone born 1990 or after is slowly realizing that the current structure of society is absurd and that working our whole lives just to save money is fucking ridiculous. If you ask any human under the age of 15 what they want to be when they get older, 90% will say YouTube star. Why? Why is that? It's the lifestyle. It's the freedom to do as they please, act as they want, and seemingly have no worries of the world, money, or even life in general. It's because we're free-spirited beings, and society is finally beginning to wake up to this truth. This is the future of our world, and it starts now. I'm your host, Jacob Smith, and this is Observant Attention. Welcome to part 3 of Generation Anxiety. So last episode, we touched on attention and how information is not only coming from everywhere in truckloads at all times, but how that is causing us to slowly become numb to all of it. I touched on the state of our mental health right now, and that the underlying issue being how we are using our attention is way bigger than we think it is. Funny how it's so simple, yet nobody talks about it, right? We are who we've conditioned ourselves to be and experience the life we are willing to wake up every day and accept due to the life that we have grown to understand and accept in the past. And through this repetition, we become more and more addicted to the continuation of this lifestyle because of the comfort of familiarity. Even if it is comfort in a life we fucking hate. And then we allow the outside world and everything and everyone in it to control our mood at all times. And what do we do most frequently with that time we have in the outside world with our attention? Technology. We use our phones. Boom. So now we are not actually who we are, but who society views we should be. Because we are run by stress and fear and allow everything we see on our phones to manipulate us into behaving a certain way, believing certain things, and becoming certain people. And therein lies the problem. Black and white. We are lost because we've been conditioned to believe that there is no one else to be found. So today, we're going to talk about the best takeaways on quite an eye-opening documentary, if I do say so myself, The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. Go check it out. Or you could just listen to me talk because I got the key takeaways here. I've been extremely fascinated with how technology has totally taken over our lives, our decisions, behaviors, emotions, thoughts the last 5-7 years. And when this movie came out, I remember feeling such a sense of relief because I was like, finally, a new narrative, right? And then everyone started talking about it for like a week. And then it went just as fast as it came. The attention span of the world prevailed, ironically enough, once again. And the biggest threat to the human race was essentially ignored. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have big plans in this lifetime. So the reason I'm talking about this is so I can achieve them. Because if we don't start realizing what a threat AI is to civilization, then we don't have very much time left. As a joke. Maybe. First off, to begin, the movie is about these high-level executives within the tech industry who see and expose the dark side of it, okay, especially social media. Now, these tools have done some amazing things and have developed society from many different aspects. However, how they are used on a day-to-day basis is the issue. So what are the social media companies being paid for? The biggest businesses in Silicon Valley make their money not by selling products or services, but by selling their users. Think about it. We don't pay for the products we use. So then who does? It's the advertisers. Therefore, the advertisers are the customers. We are the things that are being sold. Tristan Harris, a very well-known figure within the tech industry, and essentially the face of this movement, says, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. The bottom line is they are all competing for your attention. Let's get this person to spend, and in my opinion, waste as much of their time as possible. The model is, how much of your life can you give to us? The model isn't how many people we can sell, it's how many people we can persuade. And Jaron Lanier, another conscience within the tech industry, says, it's a gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception that is the product. So let's break that down. Simply put, it's the slow change in your likes and dislikes, your behaviors and beliefs that advertisers pay for. Changing what you do, what you think, and ultimately who you are. The more attention you put on something, the more it appears within your view of reality. For example, if you're constantly focused on how much you hate your job, you're not just going to wake up one day and start loving your job. Quite the opposite. It's going to become more and more of a burden the more you think about it. Well, it's the same with anything. The same with your phones. All that shit you expose yourself to for hours a day is shaping your personality, is shaping your view of reality, your personal view of reality. And then when your phone begins to sway the way you think and the way you feel, you then carry that into your day. It knows when you're sad. It knows when you're lonely. It knows when you're depressed. It knows your patterns better than you know your patterns. And it uses that to manipulate your attention. And these companies know this, and nobody bats an eye. It knows our exact personality types based on the infinite data that it continues to gather every day. And these systems that have little to no human supervision, they're just miles and miles of computers underground that are just getting better and better and better at predicting our thoughts and emotional patterns in order to grab more and more and more of our attention. This AI is now building and compounding on models that predict our actions. They can predict them to a T, what emotions tend to trigger you. Now imagine how easy it would be to create mass conflict based on race or gender or religion or geographical location. Think about all the shit they're censoring and whose agenda that fulfills. It doesn't just go with social media, it goes with Google too, right? When you Google search something, it shows you the most relevant stuff based on A, your previous searches, B, your demographic, and C, your geographical location. So if you reside in a state that's, let's say, primarily Republican, then your Google searches will be in alignment with Republican beliefs and your previous searches, regardless if it's true, which can only lead to one thing, conflict, or a dedication to your prior beliefs, cognitive bias, right? There are ultimately three goals, okay? Engagement, growth, and advertising. What will get you scrolling, what will keep you scrolling, and what will make money. So they send notifications to increase engagement when they know your routine, right? When your breaks, your lunch, your downtime, which leads you to posts you tend to share, and then you pull your friends on. And then when you post a photo, they release the likes and the follows and the DMs and slowly, so you reach for your phone more often. And the more you do this, guess what? The more it becomes part of the program, your habit, the addiction, the requirement to use it, because that's where your first thought goes. And like I said last episode, then we narrow our focus until that unconscious process is satisfied. This movie's amazing because it not only gives you all the underlying truths from the horse's mouth, from the people who created this monster in the first place, but it also takes you through a movie to demonstrate how it is ruining our children's mental and emotional health, dividing people and separating families. Funny how this was such a big deal when it came out and then poof, disappeared. It truly goes to show how wrapped up we are in it. How we've become so accustomed to the way of life of impactful information being drowned in a sea of irrelevance. That knowing this stuff doesn't change anything. But look at the result, all the underlying health issues, and how it's not only minimizing our IQs, but our EQs as well, our emotional intelligence, essentially making the understanding of our very own emotions obsolete. Who takes the time to work on their emotional intelligence? Very rarely, if ever. Which means the only emotional intelligence we have is based on what we've learned to feel in the past, which is slowly being manipulated by the technology that's been imperceptibly doing it for us. The cycle. We've created a world where face-to-face social connection is secondary to online presence. So these children who are being raised with everything online now have no idea about life any other way, especially because we're in the middle of a pandemic right now and nobody's out socializing anyways. This is a global generation of believing that what we see online, what our kids see online, is more real than what they see in person. The very meaning of communication and culture is then at that point deceit, lies. I was talking to a buddy the other day and he's like, they're going to start teaching how to socialize classes. That'll be a class in school, the new structure of school. How to be a human. Tristan Harris uses a beautiful example here, relating technology to magicians. Magicians have a very unique and concrete understanding of how human mind works. That is why they have such a strong ability to create the perception of illusion. In the same breath, technology is almost identical. It is learning at real time how the human brain operates and creates this illusion that we are unaware of. It's manipulating our behaviors without us even realizing it. Just for a second, picture yourself scrolling through social media right now, okay? Visualize it. Does it elicit a positive emotion? Do you feel good when you picture yourself on it? Very rarely is that a yes. And if it is, do you feel good when you're not on it? This is an extremely deep-rooted personality trait that this tech is tapping into because it's almost impossible to ignore. You see your phone light up or you see a tagged photo or a bright notification. We don't have any other choice than to feel good about it, about getting that recognition and that attention. It's quite literally exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Okay, quick pause here. Throwing a lot at you. I understand that. Tend to do that. I get excited about this stuff. But that's another thing I realize about this information, about any information. When there's so much good information, when there's too much good stuff to be said, it's almost impossible to retain it all. It took me so long to break down this movie because I didn't want to skip over anything, right? So I hope you guys are with me. Did you know that the only two industries that call their consumers users are the drug industries, or the drug industry and the software industry? Found that very interesting. Okay, back on track here. All these high-level executives in Silicon Valley that created these addicting social media apps even admit that they are just as much a victim to it as you and I, which means it's the artificial intelligence that is the culprit, which is terrifying to think about because it's just exponentially compounding its knowledge of human behavior. Leading to what, right? Here's something I thought about. When was the last time you sent a photo or video of your face without a filter on it? Psychologically speaking, this is deadly for confidence. First, this social media, this technology takes our attention. Now it's taking our self-worth, our identity. How about this? Since there's a release in dopamine with every little notification, every little DM, like, follow that you receive, then there is a constant reoccurring psychological craving of instant gratification. And how are we supposed to navigate in our own lives outside of technology and compete with that standard? We're not built to withstand that much gratification, right? In our everyday, but we crave it nonetheless. So we turn to our phones to compound the addiction. And that leads to the mental health outside of our phones, right? Because we have this reward system that's constantly going off when we're on our phones that we cannot duplicate or replicate in our everyday lives. We've learned to accept the reality that was presented. That is presented. So when we see all this stuff in our world over and over again, especially on our news feeds and on the TV or whatever, we accept it and believe it without a conscious thought. Which is another reason for our strong beliefs, because we believe that everyone in our news feed, everyone in our inner circle believes the exact same things that we do. But as we've learned, that's far from the truth. That's why there's so much divide. These social media apps are purposely feeding you specific information. They have so much power. Some, if not most, of the world's most developed nations are now imploding on each other. Do you think it's a coincidence? Why is everyone disagreeing so much lately? The answer is that social media has tapped into this deep-rooted psychological process and is exploiting it, is manipulating our thoughts without us even realizing it. And then we become passionate about one side and passionate about disliking another. It's almost at the point of willful ignorance at this point, because we know, it's like cigarettes in the 60s. We know they're probably not good for us. Staying numb to it because what are we going to do about it, right? What am I going to do about it? Just whatever. Well, don't look at it from a world perspective, okay? You're probably not going to change the world. It's like recycling, Are you changing the world? No, you're doing a good thing, but you're not changing the world. Don't look at it from that point. It's too small. Look at it from your world's perspective. What has social media done to the person you are, to your personality? The thing we must understand, though, is that this is simultaneously dystopian as well as utopian, positive as well as negative, right? We can hit a button on our phones and have our favorite restaurant deliver us our favorite meal in 20 minutes. When I was in France last year, it took me 20 minutes to book 2 trains, 2 flights, and a hotel room to go to North Africa, to go to Morocco. That's a luxury. There's so much potential there, but we're slowly learning about it, right? Relatively speaking, this is all new. We've had our fun though, right? And when something's new, we just love to use it all the time. Like a new song, we listen to it all the time. A new video game, we play it all the time. But eventually we get bored and need something new. I'm in the mindset that we'll eventually all become bored of this. Fuck social media, we don't need it. And understand the psychological issues behind these platforms to be able to turn it around and use it to our advantage. But for now, it's a distraction. At the end of the day, right now, it's a distraction. We're talking about a tool that we've learned to misuse. We have so much to learn about ourselves. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it. I'm going to continue to say it. We have so much to learn about ourselves that once we figure out how to collectively put this thing down, to overcome the emotions that this 5-inch piece of technology is eliciting, the more we can uncover the beautiful world that not only surrounds us, but that is within us. The only real way to wake up in the matrix, from this matrix, is to realize that we're in one in the first place. And where does it start? Awareness. Our attention is what's being sold, but it's free for you to gain it back. So the question is, how much is yours worth? So what's the underlying issue? What is the one problem? Well, I believe it's lack of awareness and understanding, and that's my opinion. And I mean, I have some facts to back it up. I just spoke for we ran over time again about it, 20 minutes. There's too many psychological issues to pinpoint where the root of it is. And once we collectively begin to understand how detrimental these things are to society, we can then overcome them altogether. These tech companies aren't going to do it for us. They hold the power. They have all the money, but the power they hold is a result of us giving it to them, giving our time and attention to them. Once we gain that back and use our time and attention more wisely, what then do they have? What else do they have? Nothing. So we must ask ourselves, how much is my time and attention worth? Next episode will be the last one of this little Gen Anxiety mini-series and will be primarily positive. It will be all positive and optimistic. Because the information I shared the last 3 episodes wasn't meant to scare you. That's the important part you have to understand. It was meant to open your eyes to the truths, the underlying truths of all this, right? And the 4th episode, I call it Overcoming Ourselves, will be one of optimism. Because I want there to be solutions. I want people to look inwardly. I want people to discover the profound capabilities of this human experience. And I can't wait to really dive into it. If you felt at all impacted by today's information, start telling people about it. Fuck the ratings, fuck the subscriptions. I don't give a shit. Start telling people about it. Say, go watch Social Dilemma. Go watch, this podcast. Even if it's just this episode. People need to understand this. Because it's the root of our mental health issues. But the positive part of it all is that it comes down to attention. Where are you placing your attention? Be aware of the issues. And at the end of the day, life is that simple. Thank you for listening and stay inspired.